Alright, how you doing? This is Steve for Now You're Cooking and Now You're Cooking TV. I know it's been a long time since I made a video for the channel, but I appreciate your patience and your support for all our subscribers. Now, we're here at our church, the House of God in Midland, Georgia, and we are having a Bible study tonight. And there's going to be quite a few people. But what my wife and I are going to make today is for dessert. We're going to start out with dessert first. Make it first is the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup stuffed brownies. Now, how I make it myself, my personal preference in making this recipe is in a 9 by 13 inch pan. But we're going to have a pretty good crowd tonight, so I'm going to double the recipe. So here's what you're going to need first. Let me move this out of the way real quick. Here's what you're going to need first for the ingredients. Now I'll post the ingredients in the instructions in the description of this video. But you're going to need some semi-sweet chocolate chips. You're going to need some peanut butter chips. Any brand will do. You're going to need some butter. It calls for unsalted butter, but unsalted butter for me is hard to find, especially at Walmart and such. But you're going to need some unsalted butter or regular butter. You're going to need some sugar. You're going to need some all-purpose flour, some creamy peanut butter, some baking soda, and some eggs. And we're going to whip this up. Me and my wife's going to whip this up. I'm going to video my wife making this recipe and kind of describe in detail, what's going on. So we'll be right back. Alright, first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to, you see this big oven. Like I said, we are at our church kitchen cooking this. You see the double oven, the 6 burners. So yeah, this is awesome. Got a nice little griddle there. So yeah, this is great. But the first thing you need to do for this Reese's Peanut Butter Cup recipe is you're going to need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. That's 350 degrees. And like I said before, the wife and I are making a double batch of this recipe, and I usually use a 9 by 13 inch pan for this recipe, but I'm using this big one here. That should be adequate for our double recipe of this. So all right, here we go. We're starting the recipe out, and again, like I said, we are making a double batch of this recipe. But first of all, what you'll do is you will, in a large microwave safe bowl, you will combine your sugar, your butter, and water. And like I said, I'm going to have the ingredients and instructions posted in the description of this video, and even inside the video, so you guys can reference it. But you add your sugar, your butter, and water in a microwave safe bowl, and you microwave on high for 1 minute until the butter is melted. And do make sure you don't break the spoon when you're stirring all this up. I'm sorry, honey, I had to put that in. I also forgot to mention, I'm sorry about this, but one of the ingredients as well is some vanilla extract. So sorry about the inconvenience on this. It's been a while. But yeah, you'll need some vanilla extract also for this recipe, so make sure you got that as well. Okay, now that you've got the butter and the sugar mixture melted and everything, you add your semi-sweet chocolate chips in there, and you stir it around until the chocolate chips are melted. Mix it up really good. As you see my wife Paula doing here. Stir them up real nice until the chocolate chips are melted. And like I said, we're making a double batch, so the original recipe calls for 3/4 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips. when you're doing this here. But you know, we're doubling the recipe. We're making a pretty good size batch of these brownies here, and I gotta tell you, me and my wife have made these many times before, and they are a hit. They are just so good. Alright, my wife transferred the mixture into a bigger bowl, and now she is adding the eggs. The recipe calls for 1 egg. We are using 2 eggs because, like I said, I will say it again, we are making a double batch of this recipe. So she added the eggs, and now she's going to add some vanilla extract to this recipe. I'm going to stir that up real nice, where it's well mixed. It's looking good already. Now my wife's going to add the baking soda. Add some baking soda to that, and some all-purpose flour. And what we're making here, folks, is the cake base of the brownies. Everything's from scratch. There is nothing from a box. Now she's adding the all-purpose flour, 1 cup at a time. You know, like half of the of what the recipe calls for at a time. That way you can mix it all up real nice and even. And it will get a little bit thick. Sometimes when we have access to it, we'll use a mixer for all this, but we do not have one at this time. So my wife's got to show her muscles and stir it all by hand. So we've just added the baking soda and the all-purpose flour to this mixture. We've got our oven preheated to 350 degrees. We've got our pan sprayed with non-stick cooking spray. Alright, now once you get everything mixed up, you'd want to add some your peanut butter chips to it. That way it'd be all nice and peanut buttery, and you add your chocolate chips to it as well. And I know this bowl looks like a lot, and the reason for that is I know I said that we are doubling the recipe, but we're actually having to multiply the recipe by 4 to accommodate the size of the pan and the people that are going to be enjoying it. So yeah, as you can see, you know, those tables are almost going to be filled up tonight. So this is the fellowship hall. So you know, we need to make a good sized cake. So we are multiplying this recipe times 4.
Someone with strong arms.
So yeah, and my wife is using her Popeye the Sailor Man arm. She needs to eat her some spinach to stir all this up. But yeah, and we got the stove preheating, and you know, and like I said, we had to multiply the recipe to accommodate this large pan here. Okay, so you know, and I say this with every recipe. I usually follow recipes, but a lot of times, you know, you can tweak a recipe a little bit. You know, you can add or omit whatever you want to a recipe. You know, the object of cooking, folks, is being creative. So you know, if it tastes good to you, then that's all that matters. You know, pretty much. Yeah, you could add like some actual peanuts to this recipe or whatnot. You know, some people can't, they add just, peanuts, walnuts, you can even like do a little Reese's peanut butter cup s'mores type thing, and crumble up some graham crackers and add to this. Whatever you like, man. Be creative. Be creative.
I might need a little spoon.
All right, we're fixing to. We got everything mixed up now, and my wife is now pouring the batter in our greased pan. We sprayed the bottom of the pan with non-stick cooking spray, and the batter itself is going to be rather thick, so don't worry about that none. Let me get around here to the other side. But yeah, we're now pouring placing the batter inside the pan here, and you can see the peanut butter chips in there and all that. The yummy goodness of this is just extraordinary. And this actually turns out to be somewhat of I guess a cake-like brownie, if you will. They say it's a brownie, but it's more of a cake the way I do it. But the actual recipe is calls for cupcakes or mini-muffins, if you will. Either cupcakes or mini-muffins, but I prefer putting it in an actual 9x13 cake pan, and it turns out just as good. And I started doing this for the fact that when I started making this recipe a couple years ago, we did not have any muffin tins or cupcake pans or whatever like that. All we had was a 9x13 pan. So we just started making this recipe in that, and we've been doing it this way ever since. But once you get the batter in your pan, you want to spread it out, or make an attempt on it anyway. Spread it out, real nice and even. And you've got your oven preheated to 350 degrees. But spread that out the best way you possibly can.
It will rise a lot.
It will rise a lot, so don't worry about that none. It will rise quite a bit. It will rise. Spread it out as evenly as you can in the pan.
I would suggest using a metal spoon and greasing it first.
Yeah, my wife says she suggests using a metal spoon and greasing it first to spread this out with, but spread it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. Some people are perfectionists and blah blah blah. But just spread it out as evenly as you possibly can in the pan.
Okay.
Okay. And once you get it all evened out, you put it in your preheated oven at 350 degrees, and the recipe says to bake it at 13-15 minutes. But like I said, we quadrupled the recipe. So just basically bake it until a toothpick comes out clean. Just keep a check on it. You know what I'm saying? And we'll get right back to you with the finished product. It's going to be yummy. All right, and there's the cake fresh out of the oven. Don't that look good or what, folks? Now, see, my wife is now taking. We're using a wooden chopstick, but you see how she's poking holes all throughout the cake. Now, there's a reason for this. You see, because this is where the creamy peanut butter comes in. But you poke holes all throughout the cake there, as you can see. And then you take your creamy peanut butter and you put it in a pot and you stir that around and you heat it up on the stove just until it's melted. And do use a pot holder when you're using a metal pan.
Yeah.
But you stir that up until it's melted. Until it's just melted, you know, and kind of almost soupy. But you want the peanut butter to melt, to be melted, as you would butter, so to speak. But keep stirring it so it don't burn, of course. You let that get nice and melted. And the recipe calls for 3/4 cups of creamy peanut butter. You can use the crunchy peanut butter. Any kind of peanut butter that you prefer would be good. You know, be creative. We prefer the creamy peanut butter. Now that it's melted, this is what you do. You take your melted peanut butter and pour it all over the cake. Just like so. Drizzle it all on there, and it will eventually spread around. Pour it all on there. This makes like a frosting for your cake, is what this is. For your frosting, brownies, whatever you prefer to call it. I call it a cake myself. Let that peanut butter just get all up on there like that. Boy, look at that. Look at that right there. Well, I tell you what, this is going to make you time slap your brains out, folks, let me tell you. Alright. Now, once you get that, you want to spread it out a little bit, you know, kind of even it out somewhat, you know, just like you're frosting a cake. Just like you're frosting a cake. There you go. Just like you're frosting a cake. And then once you get that done, you take some peanut butter chips and just kind of sprinkling them all over the cake like that as a garnish.
As much or as little as you want.
And we will also be putting you know, some chocolate chips on this as well for a garnish. We're actually waiting for some church members of ours to show up, because we kind of ran out of the chocolate chips making this cake. We didn't buy enough. But just put the peanut butter chips on there, put chocolate chips on there, and just finish letting it cool off, and you are good to eat. And this is Steve Nichols and Paula Nichols for Now You're Cooking TV, and this is the Reese's Peanut Butter Stuffed Cupcakes made in a baking pan. Y'all have a good one and keep on cooking.